What is going on, Monkeypod universe? Welcome to the grand reopening. Welcome to the end of month one in 2026. Just to throw that in your faces. Yeah, I saw this calendar event pop up and I just think it's beautiful. And I'm really excited to hear what Cameron and Jade have to share. Monkeypod, is a pillar of the industry, is a legacy business with tons of history and so much that we are proud of and excited about. And as Cameron has underscored and will no doubt say again today, I don't think we're moving or taking away any of the things that you love, but we do want to clarify some of the new things that you can be excited about and the new audiences that we hope to be serving and supporting in the future. So today's conversation should be just kind of a reaffirmation of our direction and our momentum and hopefully teasing or whetting the appetite for some different things that you can expect in 2026 and beyond.
That's exactly it. Like, things have changed, and we don't want to, like, one of the things I've been really cautious about, especially over the last, admittedly year plus, is that I don't want to, talk about change in such a way that makes people think that the stuff they love is going to go away. But I also don't want people, especially our members and past learners, to think, well, we're stuck in time as well. And, if the industry changes and Monkeypod doesn't, we're all going to get left behind, or we're not going to be able to give the value that we want to our members. So it's probably not in any of your minds as tight a tightrope as it is in mine. But when we all care deeply about Monkeypod and its members, we want to make sure that we manage that tightrope as well as possible. If you could just tell me your first interaction, like your first memory with Monkeypod, was it with one of us personally? Was it a recommendation to take a course? Was it joining the Grove? Was it the invitation to this event? If you could let us know where you're at in in terms of your relationship with Monkeypod. I'd love to hear what the first interaction is, and I'd also love to hear what your current relationship is with us. So if you're a past member, I was trying to be really clear when we were sending the invitation for this too. It's for past learners, it's for past members, it's for current members, it's for people who maybe moved on from Monkeypod because they moved on from Keap. So if you're in any of those situations where maybe your relationship, if you can remember what your first interaction with us was, I'd love to hear that. And if the situation has changed now, I'd love to hear that in the chat as well. And while you all post that in, I'll lay some of the groundwork for what I'd like us to talk about today. Jade is keeping it, meeting Monkeypod changed my life with some tears of joy, I think, and hope. So thanks, Jade. We'll maybe talk about that a little bit more as the session of the year goes on as well. I'll give you some opportunity to talk about that. What Jason just said is, I think, a pretty common sentiment as well. I don't remember my first interaction because certainly in, the early days of Monkeypod, as I understand them before I joined, and also when I joined as a member, learning from Monkeypod, especially taking a course from Monkeypod, was is ubiquitous the word? It was just, a common part of learning how to do business automation. And with an 11-year history, people can't always pinpoint exactly what the first interaction was, or like you said, it's complicated. Use Monkeypod Pass to learn about Keap. Went away as I was doing high level for a while. And Stuart, thanks for saying that, because that was the message as we get through the what's changing. That's an important part of it, to talk about the proliferation of technologies. And then Paul, Paul and I know each other in Hamilton in real life. And when Paul transitioned to, from a big organization with a big CRM to solo operator, we took a look also at high level. First interaction with Monkeypod, I remember going to a Keap group and asking how one goes about learning Keap, and everyone says Monkeypod. And we love that history. We love those vibes. In some cases we still have those, and in some cases we don't. And we want to, we want to ask for help getting back to there. I'll read more in a minute, but I'm worried if I just keep going deep into the chat. Maybe Jade can tell us as stuff comes up here in the chat, because I'm going to turn my attention back to my notes here. Okay, so
this is worth interrupting already, even though I just love interrupting because I love interrupting. I like how Jason pointed out, like, yes, he's just being silly when he's like, it's complicated. Reminds me of, like, remember when Facebook first started and your relationship status was, it's complicated. But anyway, but I love that he said currently I go to the Grove first when I'm trying to solve complex problems for customers. And if that ain't the truth, thank you. Preach, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some smart people in there, and And I think
And then there's us.
facilitating the movements of other smart people. In a second, I'm going to ask one more question about kind of the proliferation of technology. But before we do that, all three of us are Team Monkeypod. I didn't, believe it or not, are pictures of us together, but because I get to give most of the slides today, I separated myself out. And I just wanted to express thanks that Jade and Greg are here. One, being such great contributors and rolling with the progress we're making on what we're keeping the same and what we're changing at Monkeypod, and also just being here to love and support us in the group and this meeting as well. So thank you both for being here. If there was a way to do live applause, I would do that. If you've been watching any of the weekly recordings that Jade and I have been doing, or other webinars, you've probably heard little sprinkling of all of these types of things. But today, I wanted to bring it together into one kind of cohesive update, one cohesive story for you. So the first quick chapter, I want to have a conversation about the state of automation. And there's a few things to talk about in the state of automation, but the first thing is just some, a tough truth, a tough conversation about what it means to be so closely tied to the Keap community rather than the automation community at large. So we're talking about the state of automation. We're going to talk about what conceptually, as we've been trying to figure out how to support you all the best, conceptually, where Monkeypod needs to go as a result. And then from there, I've got some really concrete announcements for you, including one, there's a bunch that I'm really excited about, but one is that one of our most expensive flagship products is going to become free. So if any of you haven't taken it yet, I don't want to jump ahead. We'll announce it in a few minutes, but there is some really cool concrete announcements to share with you. And then finally, I've got a slide just to remind and summarize, because I'm going to, talk at a million miles a minute here and give you some call to action after that. Sound good? Everybody still with me?
You're doing great. You're killing it.
Great.
We're just dancing and jamming. You are
Just
crushing
dancing
it.
and jamming. Awesome. All right.
Can I just say I'm excited? Like, guys, there's so much that's like changing, but it's all good, and I can't wait. That's all. Okay, go. I'm creating FOMO.
All right. So let's start with the state of automation. I've actually only got one slide because I think I'm going to talk. We're going to just riff on this. So again, if you want to unmute and share your thoughts about these things, this particular section is pretty brief this way. So in the state of automation, look, how many of you, if you can chat into the group, what your main CRM is? You might have other commerce tools, other integration tools, these types of things. But if it's Keap, say Keap. If it's not Keap, tell us what it is. We've got HubSpot, GHL, Keap Pro. So the first three responses in the chat are three diverse responses. And frankly, that the two that aren't Keap in that list are the ones where we sense that people, and not sense, like I've literally had one-on-one conversations with members recently who say, when I have a Keap question, I post it, but if it's a migration question to HubSpot, or if it's a high-level question, I wonder if I'm supposed to, right? So this is exactly the problem we're facing, right? So Keap is the software company that brought us together, right? If Keap didn't have such a powerful automation engine 11 years ago, and also a community that was so hungry for training that Keap wasn't giving, then Monkeypod wouldn't exist, right? So the Keap software platform is the technology that required training so that people could build confidence, and that's why Monkeypod needed to exist back then. So we want to, Keap Campaign Builder came online, the advanced automations. You used to have to use action sets and things before that, came online in March 2012, nearly 14 years ago. So we have a really big and warm places in our heart, our collective heart as the people who are leading Monkeypod, for the Keap platform. But the world is different, right? Keap has been sold, right? So the people who we are accustomed to working with in terms of senior leadership, as far as products, builders and creators, people who set the product vision, whether we were always happy or often frustrated with it back then, there was still kind of a magic to being connected to all of those things. And Keap's been sold to essentially a $1 billion a year company that is trying to do great things with it and also not necessarily getting as far as they need to. So that's one thing, is that the Keap landscape is just different. And I think we can all admit that, and we can all feel that. So we don't want to dump Keap, but we want to make sure that we have a way to diversify away from just being all about Keap all the time. And so part one is that the Keap reality check is that Keap does not have the market share, and it's not the simple, obvious go-to answer for marketing automation anymore, right? If 10 years ago you could use a bare bones constant contact or an automation-driven Keap, market share for Keap was kind of on a different trajectory. And that leads to the second point, um, around platform proliferation, right? Certainly 11 years ago, and also probably 5 years ago, the field was fairly narrow, right? You're a giant company, you look at Salesforce and Marketo. You're a medium-sized company, you look at HubSpot. You're a small, medium company, you look at Keap. You're just email marketing, you look at MailChimp, right? The landscape is simpler back then. Now, there are big CRMs, small CRMs, tools that only do one thing, like really great email marketing, AI tools, not to mention things like high level, where it's a white label community where there's high level. There's high level from agencies in a generic flavor. And then there's also high level from agencies that specialize in, lawn care or mortgage agents and these types of things, right? So, um, it's not, I just want to be clear, like we love Keap and we're going to keep supporting our members who are still on Keap. But because of this platform proliferation, we also need to make a space where people who are enthusiastic, either DIYers or agency owners who are excited about business automation can talk about strategy and best practices and also a bit of technology, but not hitching our wagon to one specific technology. So I have requests and call to actions way later in the presentation here. But if you know someone who loved Monkeypod but left us because they left Keap, this is my plea to we'd love to have you come back and try us again. Okay.
Hey, Cam.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing is occurring to me as you talk there and occurring to Jeff in the chat that I just want to say out loud. I think for a long time, I and we were like really committed to supporting Keap users, but the emphasis was on Keap in that sentence. And I think that the subtle shift is that we're still committed to supporting users, but Keap isn't the defining characteristic in that sentence. So do we still support Keap users? We absolutely do, but we're focused on the individuals, the businesses, the keyboard, clickers and mouse movers without respect for or without regard for what platform you happen to be using. And that's the goal here is like, I don't want anybody who we've supported in the past to feel like that's going away. It's not. But if you felt like you had to use Keap in order to benefit from Monkeypod, we're hoping that that won't be the case in the future as we broaden our support of the different landscape of tools out there. So that's what I heard from what you were saying. And I think, if
I
you
think
feel
it's
comfortable with that, I think that's a good way of like maybe shifting that perspective.
100%. Yeah. And I like that you can describe that both as a subtle shift and a big shift. You said subtle, and I
Well,
like that
subtle in
it's
terms of the semantics. Yeah.
yeah, well, I like that it's subtle in that, Monkeypod has always been about customer journey, right? One of
Yeah.
Greg's most popular and anchoring pieces of content is around the one conversation. How do you decide what in your business, if improved or if improved with automation, would make the difference for improving someone's customer journey or improving the performance of your business, right? Um, so if that's been, a persistent part of this for the whole 11 years, the shift towards, becoming confident in technology is similar but different than becoming confident in Keap. And I think that that's where we find the through line between these two things. So the next two, if you remember my rundown of chapter, and thank you, Greg, for piping in. Okay, Monkeypod shift. So the supportive nature, the very friendly, I think funny vibes, the helpful nature, and having experts in the group and also experts adjacent to the group, right? People who know a lot about a particular strategy or technology or problem. Those things we will do everything we can to um, hang on to those forever, right? And if you ever feel like those are slipping, I'd love a Zoom call with you to put us back on track. But those are the things that cannot change. The things that have to change are that we need to consider platform diversification. As long as people keep thinking that Monkeypod is where you learn to become confident with Keap, Monkeypod will shrink at essentially the same pace as as Keap, except for the people who are saying, which happens all the time in the conversations I have with members, I'm staying because I love Monkeypod, even though I'm not with Keap anymore. Like it's a even though instead of, I still want to be there because, right? So platform diversification. So what this is going to mean is that if you're on Keap, if you're on High Level, if you're on HubSpot, and then beyond that, if you're on ActiveCampaign, if you're on Entreport, if you're on MailChimp, QuickBooks is starting to add a bunch of new sales CRM features into it, right? If you are, if you are a person who is enthusiastic, either because you're a DIYer or an agency person in the world of CRMs and automation, the strategy, the best practices that we are going to focus on in the future of Monkeypod will be for all of you, regardless of whether you were ever on Keap, previously on Keap, or still on Keap, right? We want that platform diversification. And I'll explain how we're going to hedge a little bit of risk in that decision in just a second. So platform diversification is a big part of this. We want you to, if it's a strategy question, strategy applies to all technology. If it's a technology question, we'll tag in the experts who's most likely to know the right thing about that piece of technology you're asking the question about. The second thing is that because of the crazy proliferation of technology, because there are so many software companies doing different things with AI, putting out really great features, putting out half-baked features, hosting conferences, doing these things. We've always had a really strong blog, but I'd like to add some clarity that the blog should be a news source as well. So you'll see strategy on the blog, you'll see technology on the blog, but you'll also see, a serious, truthful source of news of what's going on in our industry, if that's something that interests you as well. Okay. Number three, maybe I should have made it number two since it goes with platform diversification. We've always taught strategy, but as we teach the strategy, it's always been Keap Campaign Builder or Keap dashboards or Keap checkout forms that are on the screen while we demo that strategy. So we teach strategy, and then naturally you learn how to use the technology because we demo the strategy using technology. So now we're going to focus on strategy first, right? What works in marketing automation? What works in improving customer journeys? How does the one conversation help you make better decisions about the marketing automation you're doing? What changes are people making to checkouts and flows or follow-up sequences or indoctrination sequences to, to just have the best practices around sales, marketing, and operations automation, but strategy first, okay? Now, there's an asterisk on the slide here that says strategy over tech with a note about tech. The clarity that we've had, especially, as we've, Jade, Greg, and I have danced around this idea of like, well, if you're for everybody, how do you be valuable in the specificity? The guest speakers, I know some of the people who have joined today are experts and guest speakers for us sometimes. You are still going to be allowed to reach for tech. So if the guest speaker is coming to teach us about something, and then to demo that something, they want to reach for HubSpot or High Level or Keap or Zapier or whatever, they're still going to be allowed to reach for tech. And they're still going to be allowed to, drag widgets and goals and actions and things onto the screen and show us how to do things using technology. If you, as an audience member, are using that same piece of technology, you get like all the value. You get, oh my goodness, I got to see exactly how to do it in my tech. But I also think that we can give all of our members and learners credit to say, if they get to see the strategy be presented and then they get to see a trigger and an action be dragged onto a high level canvas, they're not that far away from being able to translate that to a Keap when and then instead, right? There's enough commonality that our guest speakers will still be allowed to reach for technology. They'll still be allowed to demonstrate technology, but they'll be able to choose from a wider variety of technology platforms. And then just make sure that we, especially those of us who are hosting these events with you, going to help to translate that to the other platforms that the audience in whatever event are into. And the last thing, I'm going to check the chat in a second. The last thing on this one is member-to-member events. We're going to do more pre-recorded content in the tutorial sense. But there are two consistent events we're going to start bringing to our members, those who are in the growth. One is going to be a member mingle. Member mingles are going to on, they're open, fun, nice conversations. We've talked about bringing a little conversation prompt to help make the conversations interesting, but they're just time. Virtually every time I've done a one-on-one member meet and greet in the last year and a half, people have said they want to spend more time together. So we're going to do a mingle almost every month. We might skip a summer and a December month, but almost once a month, we're going to do a mingle with some kind of conversation starter. And then at least nearly once a month, same kind of pattern, we are going to do a tech hour where the agenda is entirely driven on what you bring. If 2 people show up, that's great. If 10 people show up, that's great. But bring your problem, bring your question, and all of us who, any combination of us who join the meeting that day are going to help to solve those problems. So yeah, if I have to summarize one thing that members told me as we did one-on-ones, more time together was one of those things. All right, I got to go back to the chat. Jay, did I miss anything? You want to summarize?
Lots of agreement. People are happy that we're discussing, tech stack in a larger scope than just the Keap world. Just jokes.
Jokes.
Everyone's sort of like kind of fondly remembering, when they first jumped on board. Paul really loved the fireside chat, rapping with the kids. So some comments when you were talking about like, when we were kind of not really sure what to do about, should we stick with Keap? What's going on in the world? A lot of people were like, yeah, we feel the same way. So I think it's nice that we can, like, we're all in this together, not to like.
It's all that vibe. You can go there if you want, TJ. That's
Thank
cool.
you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I just saw Jake. I've got lots of problems. I don't know if that means that we're going to regret the tech support level provided, or if he's looking for other therapy in the group as well. Maybe that'll be a third office hours type that we set up. But yeah, Jake, I know you always have a lot of instructional things to say in terms of your knowing how to do stuff in all the automation platforms in that type of session as well. So thanks for the comment. Okay, so I try to be helpful. Yeah, absolutely, and that's what it's all about in the Grove and in our wider community to all around. Okay, so this section I'm pretty excited about. So the last one, chapter 2, was like. I hate that there's a CRM company called High Level, because every time I want to address something as that was a high level overview, I feel my brain gets stuck.
I know it's taken that term out of like
It's taking it away, and I need it. That was an overarching take on how we're changing conceptually, and I would love feedback. I'd love to know how this is resonating with people either during or after the call today. But I just want to make sure like we know that it's an awkward spot where the thing that brought us together is shrinking, but we want to grow the way we support everybody. So that's our overarching take. And before I do announcements of concrete stuff, Greg, what's up?
Yeah, I just want to say that like we're still rooting for Keap.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like Keap has their own trajectory and success and growth or expansion or contraction or whatever it is. I think we all want it to be successful. Like we want Thrive to infuse a whole bunch of resources and momentum and innovation. Like we're not giving up on Keap at all. We're just also acknowledging the rest of the landscape and the individuals who have moved on to other tools for any number of reasons. So that's all. It's like we haven't given up on Keap. We still love and are hoping and rooting for Keap to succeed for sure.
We're very well reminded, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're going to, if Thrive product managers want to meet with us, we're going to meet with them. If they, host a conference or partner day, we're going to go, right? We're still in it. We're just not in, only that. Great reminder. Thank you, Greg. Okay, so general changes discussed in chapter 2. Let's talk about some really concrete announcements, some things that I hope you all find valuable, and also maybe are willing to share if you think these are feeling good to you. So the first couple of announcements I have are available right now. I didn't want to be in a spot where we come onto this call and say, coming soon, we're working hard towards, right? I wanted to give you some things that are different that you can take advantage of right away and maybe share it with other people. We have a course that we launched a year ago called The Fundamentals of Business Automation. And it is Monkeypod's flagship course. It's professionally edited. The team got together in person to film it. And it is a guided tour through the ways people can use automation in their business. It doesn't deal with really specific technological how-tos. It deals with identifying places in the business where automation could be a good fit and then explaining how those automations work, how they're planned. It's about 90 minutes of video content, and it covers marketing, sales, fulfillment, and operations automation. So this is our flagship course. We launched it about a year ago. One of the shifts that we're making in the, coming up is around where the what and why of automation goes versus the actual tutorials. So because this is really about what automation is and why you want it in your business, we're moving it from our paid catalog to our free catalog. So this course for all of last year was $249. Now I'm really excited to shift it into free. So if you haven't taken it, take a look. Again, we'd love to just see more people take advantage of that course, get the groundwork figured out. Okay, that's announcement number one. Announcement number two is that we are, and by our, I mean surprise Greg, have changed up our LMS, our learning management platform. Um, uh, Again, we still have a lot of love for the other one, for the old one, but there were some changes I wanted to make to our LMS, and in the next slide, you will see one of the benefits that we got from shifting to a new LMS. So learn.monkeypodmarketing.com has now migrated to a different platform. Any course or option that we offer you today is going to be served up in the new LMS. And we've got a little workflow running in the background right now, restoring access to any course you had before. It's not in my slide deck for today, but there are some courses that we kind of quietly launched in our mini course catalog, including an updated version of our Keap 101 course, now called Wise Words Keap Edition, and also Market Automation 101 has been rebuilt as Wise Words Automation. And you can see some of the faces of the people on my screenshot here who gave their best tips and best advice for people who were exploring automations. All of those types of things are now available in our new platform. One of the things that this migration helped us to do is launch an app. And you in this Zoom meeting today are the first people to know that this app exists. The iPhone and Android app, this is Monkeypod branded direct app. These apps are available starting today, and they are the same content as is provided in our LMS. So if you're the kind of person who wants to learn on your full-size laptop screen, keep using your browser to access our content. But if maybe we put a member-only exclusive replay up, and you want to watch that or listen to that by audio, you'll see the exact mirrored content in both the app and on the browser, even so far as keeping your exact location. So if you watch 8 minutes of a 12-minute video on your computer, and then you want to throw some AirPods in, it'll pick up at that 8-minute mark of the exact same video when you load up that course on the app. So the /login is going to take you to the web version, and then the /app is a quick little shortcut to find the app versions. It's just another way to consume the exact same content, especially the course content and the members-only replay content that's going to be behind the username and password. The last near term or like immediate update for you, and then a couple of forward-looking updates for the rest of the year. And then I've got that summary with some of the actions that you could take if you want to. Events. We're going to do almost monthly. Again, we might skip a summer or a Christmas holiday season. Mingle, which is a discussion prompted, nice open conversation in Zoom with people inside of the members community. And then also Tech Hour, which will be an opportunity to take the kind of conversations that happen by video and text in the Grove and get some real help crowdsourced with whoever shows up that day. So these are presently being posted in the Facebook groups because they're for our members. They're inside of the group, the private portion, and you'll see the dates populate onto the same event. The dates will continue to grow throughout the year. So if you haven't been in the Grove recently, but you are a member of our community, this short code will get you directly to the Facebook page. I'm in the home stretch, and thank you so much for listening. Any comments or questions before that stuff is up now?
You're doing great, Cameron. Great pacing, momentum.
No notes.
No notes.
You're amazing.
Momentum. Future looking. So we've made our what automation does for a business, why it would make a difference, where you could find places. We've made that free over in our fundamentals course. And that is going to make some space for like a mastery course, an expert leveled up course. So these 3 items are already shot. Hopefully you can tell by the screenshots that these, again, not that there's anything wrong with the trainings that we produce using Zooms and Riverside, but because these are, the advanced level courses that we want to bring to you, Greg and I traveled to Kelowna to spend some time with Cheryl, to Squamish to spend some time with Rob, and then Jade and I traveled to Scottsdale to have a conversation with Adrian. So these are people who are like absolute experts. And I hope that you see the shift towards strategy. Technology, is part of it, but that these are very, very strategic people. So Adrian has shot a course with us called The Fundamentals of Email Delivery. Cheryl has shot a course with us called Better Emails, More Sales. And in this course, she actually, like, you see her screen sharing and deconstructing the flow and language of emails that she sends and teaches people to send for sales purposes. And then Rob is filmed Analytics Made Simple, where we've actually gone into a Google Analytics, a Google Tag Manager, and a Looker Studio account and stepped through the settings. And Rob tells us which default settings are stupid and which ones ought to be turned on, and takes us through that process. So this slide is called Future Looking because these are still work in progress, but you can see from the screenshots, these are, we traveled, we spent time, and we really got to get deep into these subjects with these experts. So watch for those announcements as the year goes on. The invitations and next steps. Again, I have all of these links summarized on the last page, so you'll be able to screen grab them if you need to, if I'm going too fast. If you want to get the fundamentals course, or if you're not a fundamentals person, if you've been with Monkeypod for 11 years, you might not be a fundamentals person, but you want to have somebody, catch up with you and learn about the fundamentals. The fundamentals course is totally free. Up until 12 hours ago, it was $249, so there's a ton of value there. Also, a little secret, if you were one of the people who paid full price for it or any price for it, I'm going to send out a little secret email to you with some extra special benefits as well. So if anyone in the room's already taken it, don't worry, I got a message coming to you. If you're a member of the Grove, but you haven't posted anything in a while, especially if it was because you were afraid to mention technology that wasn't Keap, we'd love for you to jump into the Grove and tell us what your tech stack is today. Tell us what tools it is that you're using. And then also this last one, feedback. This is the link to my personal calendar booking link. If you love this, if you hate this, if you have little refinements, if you have wishes for what we do in the future, or if you just want to chat with me, I would love to hear from you on this new direction. Okay, so the short link for membership today is mopod.co/membership. If we can, bring anybody back, if you know somebody who wants to come back to us, we'd love for that to happen. I hope that this demonstrates. I know that we've continued to have great conversations in the Grove. I know that we've continued to post content and host events, but I really wanted to bring you all in on the inflection point of what we're thinking and why Monkeypod can be the best of what it was before and also grow with the times as the proliferation of technology happens. So I'll leave this slide up for a second if you want to screen grab it. And then Jade, Greg, any comments, questions from the two of you and then from the group?
The only comment I have, just this is uplifting for me to hear. Like, I, as you all know, love and am proud of Monkeypod and the history behind this brand and business. I'm nothing but grateful for Cameron, who 2 years ago kind of took the reins and has been working to redefine the trajectory and the future of like what Monkeypod means. And I see a broader vision of like how this can continue to serve the people who it serves and can do more. And I just, I'm nothing but excited about this next chapter. And I think you did a really nice job of laying that out and driving us forward here. And I'm grateful to the folks who tuned in, Sharon. I'm grateful to the folks who tuned in live to hear this update. And I'm looking forward to hearing like the way that this resonates with you all, or ideas you have, or hopes or wishes you have, or feedback you have as you get into the FOBA course, which I am tremendously proud of. Cameron had explained to me why he wants to make it free. And it makes sense. It is not an admonishment of the value of that course. We all believe really, sincerely in how valuable it is, but we think that it is like an anchoring belief system that will make everything else Monkeypod does that much more useful or valuable. So that's where I'm sitting today. As Jade more succinctly put in the chat, it's a what, not a how. Yeah, so that's all I want to say. I feel good. I'm excited about this next generation, next chapter. And I thought you did a really nice job of sort of laying the context and summarizing there at the end. But I'll pass the baton to Jade or whomever else might want to weigh in.
Yeah, I have a couple things, but I want to start with like the little asterisk that Greg started with. I first want to comment on what Sharon said in the chat. She's like AI, and one thing I want to point out is that yes, we're broadening the tech platforms that we serve, but that is not limited to CRMs. We're not saying, okay, so we care about more CRMs such as High Level or whatever y'all are using. It's actually anything. That's historically true from the from the beginning of Monkeypod. We've always been like, hey, I'm trying to use Keap to use Zapier, to use plus this, to do this over here. So it's always been sort of like the entire tech stack, but it's just that Keap was like the source of truth of the automation where things, yes, we are absolutely going to be talking about AI. But what's really cool about not just Monkeypod, but on a deeper level in the membership is it's not just like, hey, I'm using AI. It's, how are you using AI? Or, hey, I have this AI problem. And then a bunch of people from a bunch of different perspectives and industries and levels of expertise and experience are going to chime in. And then I've said this 1,000 times and I'll say it 1,000 times more until I die, is that I get more value in the membership from other people's questions than mine. Because my questions are put on with blinders. I just need an answer I need to get from A to B. But when other people are asking questions, it shows me what's possible and it gives me more confidence to think about things differently, to try things differently. So I suspect that AI is going to be a huge part of that conversation. The second thing, actually, the main reason I wanted to talk is that we're also, Em and I are also have been working really hard on like what's the new content strategy, because Greg is like a shining example from day one of like what it's like to give good content consistently and reliably. However, Monkeypod is so old that it predates short form content. Like this is like pre TikTok, pre Reels.
That is the kindest way of calling me long-winded that I've ever heard, and I'm so flattered.
I mean, yeah, but
I said, yeah, stand on it. You're not wrong.
But the point is also true. Like that wasn't a thing yet, and then so we've sort of been like, "Oh, Jade, will you make a reel or can you make a TikTok real quick?" Because it was never really part of the equation. We've always been pointing to like the lengthy on purpose because it's deep content. It's hard to dissect and to accomplish an entire tactic in a piece of content. So Cam and I have been sort of revisioning how we're going to be delivering content and value for the free audience, right? Because that's sort of like the beloved underbelly of Monkeypod is the phenomenal pile of content. But as with the technology changes, how people consume and expect content to be delivered also changes. So Cam and I have been working really hard on meeting every week to sort of what are we doing, what are we sharing, and in addition to like publishing blogs and posting videos and updates on it, we're also being like, what happened this week in Monkeypod and what's happening this upcoming week in Monkeypod. So we're trying to be really consistent, doing that short form content, giving you like the quick little, this is what's up, this is what's up, this is what's up. So you're going to swipe, see what's new. And so it's not just like, I wonder if I'm getting any this week.
I saw a question, content plans roadmap on what platforms you'll be developing content for in the near term. So the idea is that our guests will be allowed to bring whatever technology gets them excited about the strategy that they're teaching. But that said, if Keap loses market share, and if people say, I don't know if I should say with Monkeypod because I went to blank, it's very often HubSpot and High Level. So the answer is there isn't a 100% answer because our guests will be allowed to use what they're excited about. But if we follow the tides, it's pretty likely that you'll see some demonstrations built on those platforms.
Yes. In fact, we want to make sure that if we're talking about like the core of Monkeypod's like vision and mission is strategy. It's not just the tools, but using the tools well and properly to build a robust customer journey. And so if we're talking about a particular tactic, it might be opportune for us to be like, well, this is what that looks like in Keap. This is what this looks like in High Level. Or like Cam said, if we're bringing in a speaker and they're an expert in a particular piece of software, it makes sense for them to be like, I'm teaching this tactic in this software. But us as Monkeypod are going to be conscientious about kind of delivering and talking about more than one or two.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening to Jade, Greg, and I. I would still love to hear all of your voices as well. So I'd love for you to use this Meet Cam link and get some time with me. Awesome.
Love.
Thanks,
Nothing but
everybody.
love. Yeah.
Bye, family.
Later, y'all.
Bye.